Du coup, bienvenue aussi de ma part à vous tous. Pour ceux qui ne me connaissent pas, je m'appelle Alessio Mara. Euh, je travaille chez Nomasis dans le bureau de Fribourg et je suis heureux de vous donner aujourd'hui un bref aperçu des coulisses, en quelque sorte, de notre collaboration avec d'autres clients pour vous présenter les use cases qu'on a eu avec d'autres clients qui pourraient éventuellement également être intéressants pour vous. Alors, vers quoi on va se diriger dans les 20 prochaines minutes? Je vous présenterai quelques-uns des cas d'utilisation les plus intéressants que Nomasis a pu mettre en œuvre au cours des dernières années avec ses clients. Euh, Parce qu'en fin de compte, beaucoup de use cases peuvent être aussi intéressants et utiles pour vous. Parce qu'en fin de compte, on ne veut pas dépenser des quantités énorme de ressources et de temps à bricoler soi-même des solutions et à réinventer la roue pour des choses où des standards existent et où des projets ont déjà été mis en place chez d'autres clients. Donc, la première pensée dans tout ce que fait Nomasis va toujours à l'utilisateur final. C'est lui qui doit travailler avec l'appareil. Et en tant qu'utilisateur final, il attend une simplicité efficace des services qu'on lui propose en tant qu'entreprise. Et on est convaincu que la sécurité informatique commence et se termine chez l'utilisateur final. Et avec des services conviviaux qu'on propose et avec justement la simplicité, on peut éviter ce qu'on appelle le shadow IT, où les utilisateurs peuvent devenir créatifs, disons, et transmettre éventuellement des données privées ou confidentielles, enfin plutôt des données confidentielles d'entreprise sur des comptes privés ou via WhatsApp ou via leur compte email privé parce que bah, c'est plus simple de passer d'un appareil à un autre comme ça. Et évidemment, la sécurité informatique, elle est également importante pour nous chez Nomasis et on en connaît beaucoup à ce sujet car on est une entreprise de sécurité informatique pour l'informatique mobile, donc pour tout ce qui est mobilité. Et après des années d'expérience justement dans ce domaine de la mobilité et de la sécurité informatique pour la mobilité, on a remarqué que des services conviviaux et la sensibilisation chez l'utilisateur, qui est très importante, à l'informatique justement, à l'informatique mobile, Heu, c'est une énorme partie d'une bonne sécurité informatique globale. La plupart des cas d'utilisation, que je vais vous montrer, ils peuvent, quasiment tous être appliqués à toutes les plateformes courantes. Quand c'est pas le cas, je le préciserai, évidemment dans la présentation si c'est cantonné à tel ou tel système, mais globalement c'est possible de l'utiliser pour tous les systèmes. Donc ça, c'est la partie introduction. J'espère que vous allez être intéressés par ces différents use cases et évidemment, à la fin de la présentation, vous pouvez toujours poser vos questions ou bien venir ultérieurement vers nous si vous avez des questions ou si vous voulez plus d'informations sur les use cases qui ont été présentés aujourd'hui. Alors, le premier use case que je vais vous présenter, concerne le Zero IT Touch Staging. C'est un cas d'utilisation qui a surtout pris son essor pendant la pandémie, maintenant depuis plus de 2 ans, mais que les clients pourront plus passer à l'avenir. Avec le Zero IT Touch Staging, on peut réduire considérablement les coûts en termes de staging et d'enrôlement des appareils, c'est-à-dire vraiment la mise à disposition et la configuration de smartphones, de tablettes et d'ordinateurs portables. Dans le cas idéal, le fournisseur envoie les appareils directement au domicile de l'utilisateur et du coup, l'utilisateur, il a juste besoin de déballer, l'appareil, la boîte, le brancher au secteur évidemment, le charger, l'allumer, s'authentifier avec le compte professionnel et ensuite ça déroule. Toutes les directives que l'entreprise, met en place et tout le déroulement pour le staging, est affiché sur l'appareil et l'utilisateur lui-même, il peut du coup faire tout ce processus et à la fin pouvoir, utiliser l'appareil avec, toutes les applications, professionnelles qu'il a besoin. Les clients avaient donc besoin, du coup de simplifier, cette partie justement d'enrôlement et de staging des appareils, et de rendre moins coûteux justement tout ce processus, parce qu'en fin de compte, les défis étaient toujours les mêmes. C'est-à-dire qu'on a un appareil qu'il faut mettre à disposition à un utilisateur, il faut le déballer, l'allumer, faire le staging initial, du coup, ben, le nouvel iPhone ou le nouvel Android pour qu'il soit utilisable. Ensuite, l'enrôler dans le MDM, ensuite mettre les applications. Du coup, ça, c'était vraiment, heu, le processus, je dirais, classique et avec justement ce service, introduit, la disposition des appareils via la poste en fin de compte, parce que du coup l'utilisateur le reçoit à la maison, via la poste, bah, tout justement toute la mise à disposition, la configuration et l'utilisation est, énormément simplifiée pour l'utilisateur final et en fin de compte, pour nous en tant qu'entreprise, en tant que département informatique, c'est aussi plus simple. Du coup, en plus des économies de coûts, les ressources aussi utilisées pour, les tâches internes de staging et d'enrôlement justement, peuvent être affectées à d'autres tâches, des tâches plus importantes, en interne ou autres. Donc les réactions qu'on reçoit de nos clients et des utilisateurs par rapport à ce zéro IT touch staging ont toujours été très positives et je pense que, ce use case va continuer à l'avenir, même, au sortir de la pandémie. Concernant le deuxième cas d'utilisation, que je vous présente aujourd'hui, c'est celui des appareils partagés. C'est-à-dire que les appareils que plusieurs collaborateurs peuvent, se partager ou alors, d'un autre point de vue, un pool d'appareils, donc plusieurs appareils mis à disposition pour, plusieurs collaborateurs. Parce qu'en fin de compte, la question qu'on veut se poser pour un cas ou l'autre, c'est: «Est-ce que chaque collaborateur a besoin d'un appareil?» C'est pas forcément le cas, et du coup, ce use case peut être justement intéressant suivant, ce qu'on veut faire en tant qu'entreprise. Heu, Si on pense aussi dans les organisations d'urgence, comme les corps de police ou les hôpitaux, où on travaille en équipe, il peut y avoir un grand potentiel justement d'économie de coûts, mais en principe, partout où les collaborateurs n'ont pas forcément besoin d'un appareil en permanence, ce use case, il peut être clairement utile justement, d'avoir justement un pool d'appareils ou un appareil qui peut être utilisé par plusieurs personnes. Le but, c'est qu'une fois mis à disposition, donc ces appareils, les utilisateurs, ils peuvent utiliser justement ces appareils partagés, qui sont tout le temps actualisés et contrôlés par vous, en tant que département informatique, en tant qu'entreprise et ben, en fin de compte aussi, on peut aussi voir là une réduction des coûts étant donné que, si on prend des chiffres inventés pour une équipe de 10 personnes, si vous devez manager 10 appareils ou 4 parce qu'ils en ont pas forcément tous besoin à tous les moments. Forcément, derrière le coût, pour l'entretien et le support des appareils, il sera différent et il peut être réduit justement. C'est là que ça peut être intéressant, pour vous en tant qu'entreprise. Le troisième cas d'utilisation concerne le kiosque ou le single app mode. Donc le kiosque mode, tout ça s'applique, partout où les clients, ou les entreprises, veulent proposer des appareils avec, une, gamme de services réduite, heu, il se peut que, heu, l'appareil propose qu'une seule application, par exemple, une seule application bien précise que l'utilisateur, ne peut pas quitter, où l'appareil affiche uniquement cette application. Ou alors on peut aussi imaginer le cas où on restreint, le nombre de services et le nombre d'applications. Du coup, on peut utiliser l'appareil où on voit l'écran principal avec plusieurs applications, mais qu'on restreint ou par exemple, on n'a pas le droit de changer la configuration Wi-Fi ou par exemple, on peut pas aller dans les paramètres et on met à disposition uniquement 2 applications, par exemple. Heu, donc Cette façon de faire, heu, permet également d'augmenter, en fin de compte, la sécurité informatique, d'une part, et la convivialité de l'autre part pour les collaborateurs qui ont pas forcément l'habitude d'utiliser des systèmes, informatiques. Parce que c'est pas forcément leur quotidien. On peut penser notamment à des chauffeurs, à des techniciens de service, ou aussi à des patients, par exemple, si on imagine, des hôpitaux. Donc, en tant qu'entreprise, on peut imaginer ce mode de faire pour nos collaborateurs ou pour nos clients également. Et comme je disais, la sécurité informatique, elle est étendue, étant donné que vu que l'expérience utilisateur, en fin de compte, elle est guidée, vu qu'on met à disposition qu'un nombre de services restreint, alors évidemment derrière le taux d'erreur, de l'utilisateur ou du patient est plus faible forcément. Et du coup, si on regarde encore un peu plus loin, les frais d'entretien et de support pour, ces appareils peuvent être également, diminués étant donné que le risque d'erreur et le risque de problème est diminué également. Donc une fois mis à disposition par le département informatique pour les collaborateurs, clients ou patients, ils peuvent profiter, de ces appareils mobiles qui leur fournissent, les services dont ils ont besoin et uniquement ceux qu'ils ont besoin. Avant j'ai mentionné, des chauffeurs ou des techniciens. On peut également, imaginer une réception d'hôtel par exemple, heu pour faire un self check-in ou alors aussi dans les aéroports. Vous avez pu voir ces dernières années qu'on a ces bornes justement pour faire, des check-in nous-mêmes où, du coup, il y a l'application pour faire, le check-in et c'est tout. On peut pas sortir de l'application, on peut rien faire d'autre, donc ça, c'est le genre de cas qui peuvent être, intéressants aussi pour, en tant qu'entreprise d'avoir ce kiosque mode. 4e cas d'utilisation concerne le service de photo, de dictée de documents sécurisés. Ce use case, il se rapporte, évidemment, uniquement aux appareils Android et iOS. Du coup, là, justement, je disais au début que quand, ça concerne pas tous les appareils mobiles, je le préciserai. Là, c'est le cas, ça concerne, les appareils Android et iOS. Hem, le cas d'utilisation, concerne les clients qui souhaitent que les photos, les enregistrements vocaux, les documents, ils soient pas stockés dans les applications normalement prévues justement, à cet effet, donc l'application, galerie et cetera en local sur le téléphone, mais justement ou alors non plus qu'ils veulent pas que ce soit dans le cloud, hein, on peut aussi, bien comprendre que certaines données, ne doivent pas aller dans le cloud, heu, ou on ne sait pas forcément où les données sont, mais justement, ils veulent que ces données soient sécurisées, dans l'entreprise. On peut aussi, heu, penser justement avec les services que Apple ont donné avec leur partage familial justement il y a quelques années, où, tous les appareils d'un cercle familial peuvent retrouver toutes les photos. On peut penser justement, à la famille d'inspecteurs qui veulent pas forcément voir, les photos que leur membre de la famille justement a fait dans sa journée de travail, qui pourraient, potentiellement leur couper l'appétit, en voyant ces photos. Du coup, le but vraiment derrière, c'est, grâce à l'introduction justement de ce service, c'est que les clients, les utilisateurs, bénéficient, d'un stockage sécurisé, donc d'un repository, sécurisé dans l'entreprise, séparé des photos privées, séparé du domaine privé de l'appareil, et qui sont d'ailleurs aussi, automatiquement sauvegardés derrière, hein, potentiellement. On peut aussi voir cette partie, sauvegarde derrière, hem et ça permet aussi, en fin de compte, à l'utilisateur final, heu, la possibilité d'utiliser cet appareil, en fin de compte, des utilisations privées. S'il sait que, OK, la partie professionnelle qu'il a fait aujourd'hui est stocké, derrière sur le repository de l'entreprise, sécurisé, sauvegardé. Il n'a pas besoin de lui-même faire un tri dans ses données, pour pouvoir, profiter d'une part du côté professionnel et de l'autre part du côté privé. 5e cas d'utilisation concerne, la synchronisation des contacts, qui intègre encore mieux les smartphones d'une entreprise, des utilisateurs à justement à l'entreprise et ça permet d'avoir, un quick win en fin de compte, grâce à la synchronisation proactive du répertoire de l'entreprise. Par répertoire de l'entreprise, j'entends, Active Directory ou Azure ID ou autre. Le smartphone des utilisateurs finaux, il s'intègre encore mieux avec l'entreprise, l'identification, interne de la personne qui l'appelle, et l'accès direct à ces informations justement de contact, en ligne ou hors ligne, permettent justement, d'avoir ce quick win comme j'ai dit et d'avoir, une utilisation plus confortable, de toute cette partie justement, des contacts. Et évidemment, cette partie de synchronisation des contacts, elle peut également être utilisée avec, des contacts d'un CRM, par exemple, où ça peut être également intéressant pour certains d'entre vous. 6e et avant-dernier cas que je vous présente aujourd'hui, concerne, l'un des cas les plus présents chez nos clients, c'est-à-dire, l'accès depuis les smartphones, depuis les tablettes aussi, à des boîtes mail de groupe. On pense notamment, aux boîtes mail impersonnelles comme, info@ support@ vente@ et cetera, ou également par exemple à une boîte mail, d'un service de piquet, où une équipe restreinte doit avoir accès à la même boîte mail. Donc l'accès via le smartphone ou la tablette permet aux collaborateurs de réagir encore mieux aux demandes, que ce soit des clients internes ou externes. De mieux s'organiser entre eux, justement entre, les personnes qui font partie de cette équipe, que ce soit justement, du service des achats ou, du service de piquet et en fin de compte aussi être mieux informés et on a remarqué aussi qu'avec ce cas d'utilisation, heu, ça permet une tendance à diminuer le flux d'emails dans les entreprises, ce qui peut potentiellement aussi être la stratégie, heu, informatique, d'une entreprise potentiellement, ce qui peut du coup être aussi intéressant pour vous. Dernier cas, qu'on va discuter aujourd'hui, heu, concerne en fin de compte ce que quasiment tout le monde utilise quand il s'agit d'une solution MDM, c'est la configuration d'application. Heu, à la fin, la configuration d'une application, elle doit être la même sur tous les appareils mobiles où on fournit justement cette application et si le département informatique ou l'utilisateur, hein, aussi, devait configurer sur chaque mobile, sur chaque appareil qu'il a, manuellement, l'application, ça prendrait, énormément de temps évidemment. Si on parle d'un parc d'appareils de 10 appareils, c'est une chose. Si on parle de 8 000 appareils, c'en est une toute autre. C'est pour ça que la configuration des applications depuis un MDM ou un UIM, c'est en fin de compte un gain d'énergie, de temps et si on parle de gain d'énergie et de temps, en fin de compte aussi d'argent considérable. Depuis déjà 7 ans maintenant que, iOS et Android offrent cette possibilité justement de configurer des applications depuis un système MDM. Ça simplifie évidemment grandement, toute cette, partie, gestion d'applications qu'on met à disposition aux appareils. Alors évidemment, à condition que le développeur de l'application l'a prévu dans le code, justement de la dite application. Si c'est pas prévu dans le code, évidemment, on peut pas, pousser des configurations à partir d'un MDM, mais au jour d'aujourd'hui, énormément d'applications, fournissent, la possibilité justement de configurer depuis un système, MDM. Du coup, c'est là que Nomasis, entre en jeu. Tous les cas d'utilisation mentionnés, dans cette présentation, font partie des services, cadre du Mobile Operation Center que vous connaissez sûrement tous maintenant. On s'occupe de l'introduction, de l'exploitation et de l'entretien, de toutes ces solutions jusqu'au support pour vos utilisateurs finaux, si c'est quelque chose qui vous intéresse. Du coup, vraiment pas hésiter à nous contacter et on se tient toujours et très volontiers à votre disposition, toujours avec créativité et professionnalisme pour, vous aider dans vos démarches.
And good morning also from my side. I will do the presentation in English as my French is sadly not as good as Alessia's, and I didn't had that much contact with French before, so I will do it in English. Shortly to myself, my name is Philipp Farni. I work now for nearly 6 years for Nomasis in the security engineering um, part, and we will talk about the workplace self-service portal today, like a portal who can solve all the needs of your employees in the mobile devices part. Shortly about the agenda. First, what problem do we want to solve with this portal? Then one portal for all the different departments in the company. Little view. Then the packages this portal has to offer. The procedure on how to get it up and running. Then, like every other tool, we know there are compatibilities. We have to have an eye on it. And in the end, what challenges do we want to solve, or did we or were we able to solve them with the previous slides we saw today? So, what problem do we want to solve with this portal? So this should be a portal where the employees they want the choice, they want control, flexibility, and no configuration issues. Probably as usual, probably in all the companies, it's the same needs. The employees want to choose by themselves what kind of devices they are able to buy or to register. They want to have the control over their devices. They want to see how much they cost, how much devices I have um, on my account, what is possible to get, and everything, and also the flexibility to be able to buy or get a new device without running to the person and say, hey, I need this and this device. So he just can open the shop inside the portal, click on the devices he wants, he can order it, and then it gets ordered to his place, and he can set it up and register it and everything. Then the HR wants a guaranteed employee experience, so it should be the experience for each employee the same experience. Doesn't matter where the employee is, if it's in Switzerland, if it's in the holidays, if he's in, I don't know, somewhere else on the earth. So it looks the same, and he can do it in every situation or in every time of the day. So if he thinks on, I don't know, early mornings, he doesn't have to wait until the IT is up. He can go to the portal and do something there. Then the procurement or finance team or department, they want predictable costs for the entire workplace, so they can make their budget. You can make some vouchers for the employees so they have an amount of money to spend to their for buying devices or spending, and they have an overview about all the devices which are in the portal. They can take out reports, and then they have an overview about the costs or about the amount of devices which are registered in there. And then for the IT departments, they want a simple workplace that is independent of technology, and of course they don't want to have a lot of support to do. So they want one portal which is easy to use. And the enterprise or the company itself, they want just that everyone can do the business now, and they don't have to spend a lot of time to set up the workplace for the employee and everything. So it's just they can do it on the side, they can set up the devices and everything, but that they can really work and do the business. And for our customers, we see that this workplace self-service portal can be the answer to each of these needs. Here shortly in another overview, in the middle stands the employee's experience, and around it the IT, the security, of course, the human resources, and the fleet manager, which are all part of this whole experience. Then firstly, a portal for the IT support. It is really an easy overview. It's an easy portal. There is not much of training needed, or even no training needed. You can log in there with your account, with your AD account, which is synced. And then you see an overview of your devices. Probably in the beginning there are maybe no devices. You have the easy and clear interface, so you don't have to search long for something. You have your buttons which are able to do some actions on it. You have your device lists and everything. You see the location, where does it is, who is the owner, what is the source, where does it come from, and statuses, or when did it added, and you directly also see the serial number, or depending on what you have listed, so you see something else or additionally. And of course you see your categories and types of the model. Another view of the as a portal for the IT, you have automated synchronization with existing UEMs. It's also possible to have multiple connections for UEM system. So if you are using, for example, in Switzerland Intune, but in Germany Mobile Iron, and somewhere else you use Jamf, for example, you could use all of them. And if a user does log in and want to register his device, he can choose in which system he wants to register his device directly. So it doesn't need to access one of the platforms and do the registration there. You can directly use it here. And of course, you can do the role-based access. Can decide what the user is able to do, if he only can register a device, or if he also can retire it afterwards, or if you have if the device is broken down, you can request a repair of the device, or you can wipe it. I think the usual roles you can also define in other MDM systems. And an interesting part for the IT, for example, as well, there are some automated bot actions you can do with it. For example, one example is the migration. You could automate it with the portal, that you directly can switch from one MDM system into the other one. So you are registered in Mobile Iron, for example, but you're migrating to Intune, then you can just hit the button and you start the migration for the device in the portal itself. Then it is also a portal for the HR, as I said before. You can define workplace rules, so you can define what kind of workplace stuff the user gets. You have a direct overview over the stock. You can get some reports out of it. You can see how many devices are in use, or how many screens are used, and from which model. So you really have always a direct view over the current stock. You have the synchronized AD groups, so you don't have to find something new. You can just synchronize it with Azure AD, or also local AD, the on-premise AD. And you also have some automated workflows, so you don't have to do a lot from the HR side. So if a user wants a new smartphone, he can order it in the shop, but then you probably have to, then mail gets sent to his boss. He have to allow it first, and then the order gets done. So you could also implement like such workflows that you don't have to go over the HR every time, but your chief can just click a button and then the order gets done. Also interesting is for the procurement kind of view. You have support for multiple suppliers or vendors. So if you, for example, order your smartphones at MobileZone, but your laptops at Digitech, you can implement both of them in the shop, and they also could update the stocks by themselves, so the user always see how many devices are available or if they are out of stock, and you really can have it from different suppliers in the back end. So the user can just order it, but the order gets then to the right supplier or vendor. Then for the packages, there are some few different packages you're offering. The first one with the Workplace Go is just the dashboard features. So you have an overview about the devices. You can log in. You can't do that much with it. You just see the devices which are assigned to the users. Then on the Workplace Connect part, there is also now integrated the enterprise authentication with AD or Azure AD. You can do the role-based access with different roles. You have now the UEM device visibility, so you could use different different UEMs. You see them now. Before you would have to, or with the Workplace Go, you would have to integrate them like with an Excel sheet, and now you can also connect the the UEMs. You see also directly the SIM or the mobile abo of each user in the portal. So if your device gets synced with an UEM system, you see your device and also his SIM card to it. You could do already some telco actions. So like it would be a thing that with this tool, you could also integrate some telcos from like Swisscom or Salt. And if you have multiple mobile abos for each user, they can choose it directly inside which abo they want, or they maybe could upgrade one abo if they think they have too less internet or too much phone capacity or whatever. They can handle it with the abo management inside. And also terms of use. So if they log in the first time, a pop-up comes up, so they have to accept terms of use, or also the mobile smartphone contract and the contract, the policy, the internal policy. So they also can just accept it here. Then you have the web shop possibility. So you could link a web shop, or basically for now it is integrated with the Shopify API, which is like a drag and drop shop you can do with all the custom catalog and pricing and everything you can set up by yourself. You have the feature of the FAQ integrated. Yeah, and you have first parts of the audit logs and everything, so you see what's going on the server. Then in the workplace experience part, you have the first time tips. So if you start the portal the first time, you see some tips. So if the user isn't that common with such a website, he has some tips about how to use the website and everything. You can start with some device sections like lock and wipe of the device. Yeah, and you can do the payment approvals and everything. That's part of the workplace experience now. And now you could also ask for the direct device repair. So if you have an internal team who does the device repair or the replacement, you can click a button. There is a pop-up. You can shortly describe your problem and why it should be repaired, and then it goes directly to the correct department who will handle the request. And also, or additionally, you also have the internal ticketing system. So if there is a problem with your device, you can also set up a ticket, and then it also goes to the direct department. And in the workplace enterprise part, we now have there's everything open. You could also, or now you could also start with automated actions, also automation, and you could also do the reporting now. As I said, how many devices are there, or of which type, and everything. You have an unlimited amount of UEMs or different IDP authentication services and everything. And additionally to that, there would be the project-based part of the migration steps. So if you want to migrate from one UEM to another, there would be the project-based one additionally. The steps on how to set up the whole environment. First, of course, the customer gets a formula where he has to fill out to do the initial order. Then together with the customer, we do an initial workshop. We get together with all the departments, we pick them all up so we know what are the needs of all of them, and we discuss the pre-deployment checklist and everything. So, and also fill it out so we know what kind of steps we have to do, and to make sure that for the initial setup we have all firewalls open or everything is prepared to it. Then the initial setup of the tenant will be done together with the customer, but with the pre-deployment list. And then we do the configuration and everything. And afterwards, we start with the initial training, so the IT knows what to do or how it is set up, so they have an overview over everything. And then we can finish it, and we will do like a monthly or quarterly based service call with customer, just to have maybe do a report or see if it's working or is there anything which is not good. And yeah, of course, the invoicing, which is also interesting for us. UEM support, I already talked about it, but just to have a short overview, there are multiple MDM systems supported, so we can use Intune, Jamf, Mobile Iron, and Mobile Iron Cloud, Workspace ONE or AirWatch, and also Samsung Knox. Can use all of them. They are all supported. And you additionally have like a field mapping. You could the fields which are synced from the MDM system into the WSSP system, here visible on the right side. They are synced from in our case, or in this example, it is synced from the Mobile Iron. So you have your user ID, you have the common UUID of the device or serial number and everything. And on the left side, the ESP fields are of the WSSP, which you can sync together or map together. So on this field in the portal, you see which field you want of Mobile Iron. There's a huge list. I think there are basically nearly every field out of Mobile Iron, for example, you could sync here. So you have a really big list of different possibilities to sync. And for example, here the great ones, they are necessary. There are five ones which are necessary just to have it unique. Your device is unique in the portal, so they don't get duplicated. And the only one which is fixed is the serial number. Everything else could be customized for the synced field of Mobile Iron, for example. LDAP, I think I also already mentioned it, but it is supported with on-prem and Azure AD, so you can use both. if you have still both, or if you have both in use, you can add both. So the user can, on the login screen, he can choose from which authentication service he want to log in. So that can be added simultaneously, yeah. both together. And yeah, you can use your LDAP groups you want, like for example here the Mitarbeiter, the employee group and the client admin group. And then you afterwards you can role-based do the Mitarbeiter only has Mitarbeiter view, and the client admins can also switch to the admin dashboard where they can do more stuff and do the whole configuration. Then I shortly mentioned it before, the telco support, it is currently still in work, but soon you can add SIM, the physical SIMs or also the eSIM to the system. So both will be supported. So you can do some telco actions. For example, at the moment is I think it is tested with Orange in Belgium, that they can add their telco into the portal and they can do directly the abo actions out of the WSSP. You don't have to log in into the telco portal. You can do it directly in here. But that's currently still in It's a quick overview of what I talked about the last few minutes. It's really the workplace self-service for the employee. You have one overview to do the order. You can manage your device out of it. You can secure it, and you can also repair it. You have the possibility for training, but it is not needed. You can use your first time tips, but I think it's not more necessarily. A short overview how it could look like. This is from our productive system, from my kind of view. On this screenshot, my smartphone is missing as we had a little problem on our view, but that you can imagine how it will look like. You have here a list with your assets, like our keys for the garage and also to entry the office, and then my laptop, my Surface Pro device with serial numbers, and you see on which location it is, who is the owner, and how did it get added to the system. So in this case, it was added manually, not with my MDM system. And you could also do directly some actions. Well, it's not possible to do a lock unlock for a key, but you directly see the actions for a device when probably you, for example, have synced the smartphones. You can directly do the unlock action. And in the top, you see the buttons to get to the shop, or if you want to do a new request. So if you want to order a new device, you have to firstly shortly get the okay from your boss, or if you want to register a new device, create a ticket for your IT department, or if you want to access the FAQs, you there have a direct link in the upper part of the page. So workplace self-service for your IT. I think for the IT, it reduces the load, definitely with a lot of automatization, with the device recognition directly, with the UEM migration steps, device and a lot of device and ticket actions you can do. It is a full 24/7 self-service portal. You can access it every time of the day. There is no training for support needed, and you can do the reporting out of it directly. Yeah, I think it's just like a short overview again about what we talked about. So now in the end, what challenges do we want to solve, or are we able to solve them? We want to make your business more efficient by reducing operation costs, improving asset management. I think we could do that. Reducing operation costs. IT support is not as loaded for getting new stuff or helping the user to register his device. And also you have one portal to see all your assets. And I think it's also an improvement of the employee experience, as he can use one portal for purchasing, get the delivery, and has also, if he needs direct support out of one portal, he doesn't have to log into one portal, into another one, and into a third one for the support. He can do all of out of one portal. Yeah, and then maybe some short sentences. Mobile inventory is elaborately. It's an automation. It's not needed. That it's hard to do the mobile inventory. If you register his device, it is directly visible in the system. If they don't have to, or if they can't register their device, we can upload the list manually, and it is also visible in the system. What it is in the MDM is not the same as it is in the inventory. No, we can connect it, so it is one portal to view all of it. You have many devices and many profiles. No, we can just centralize it. We have it all in one place. Workflows are unique. Yeah, we can build them on demand as you want, or how you want it. The workplace management, yeah, it goes beyond devices, and you don't only register devices here, or you can also, as you saw, add the keys, or if you want to have something else in here, you can define your own model and types you have in the portal. You don't have the MDM migration stress. It is MDM independent, or with a lot of different MDMs, at least. And you also have the migration included in the portal. You can do some manual adjustments to reduce the load of every department. And in the end, for the employee, it is he has the web shop for selecting and ordering his new work equipment. He has an overview of current stocks, what is available, what is not. He has the self-service actions on the devices 24/7 available. So if his devices get stolen in the middle of the night, he doesn't have to call the IT support. He can lock his device by himself, or he can completely wipe it. He can do it by himself, and he don't need a training to use the correct button. So now I'm on the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, just let me know. Else I would say we will do a short break.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Je fais des recherches sur Shared iPad. Je vais vous présenter les possibilités pour utiliser des appareils pour plusieurs personnes. Je vais changer mon langue parce que mon français n'est pas si bien. Je vous souhaite une présentation intéressante. Alors, I will switch to English now, since it's just a bit more convenient for me. We are talking about shared iPads. So there are lots of possibilities to share mobile devices. This is one possibility, just an iPad configured to be used by multiple people. And I will quickly go through the possibilities regarding sharing mobile devices in general. So about Android devices, shared devices, and then the different kinds of or flavors of how you can share devices. And yeah, so there's a whole decision tree. This is already the simplified version. There are more nuances to all of these different possibilities. So first, you want to share a mobile device. So what does sharing a mobile device mean? So you have the same device that is used by different people at different times, not at the same time, but Like I take one device this morning, use it for the day, and I put it on a charging stand to be charged again for tomorrow. And tomorrow I might pick up the same device, or maybe somebody else will take the other device. Sometimes it depends on the use case, of course. It will be a longer time than a day. Sometimes it will be, I don't know, for the stay of a patient in a hospital, or maybe it will be for temporary workers who will check out the device for, I don't know, a week or a month and give it back afterwards. Or sometimes it will be even very short, like 5 or 10 minutes for somebody to register or to, I don't know, fill out some paperwork and then hand back the device. So this is it's a very open topic, and it largely depends on the exact use case of the customer. So what all of them have in common is the device is corporate owned. So this is a presentation I did 2 years ago at a breakfast event, 10 ways to enroll your mobile device, and there are 2 enrollment possibilities: fully managed, dedicated devices for Android, and the supervised DEP, now it's ADE, automated device enrollment for iOS devices. So the devices are fully managed, fully under control of the company in any case. So this is always the same for all these possibilities. For Android, we are talking about different setups, BYOD, when people register their own devices, and we, from an MDM standpoint, we basically manage only this little part, this work profile, and the 3 other possibilities. And today I'm mainly talking about dedicated devices that are purpose built to do multi-user capability. So yeah, Android, what can we do? We, of course, recommend what Google recommends, mainly Android Enterprise recommended devices. There you have the possibility to filter for devices that are supported for a long time and have these Android Enterprise Management APIs properly supported. We recommend provisioning via QR code or zero touch. Zero touch is of course, the most convenient of them. And then the details about the setup, they depend on which mobile device management system you have in place already. So there are different possibilities for Intune or Mobile Iron managed devices. And there are some special cases, like for example, this AOSP, Android Open Source project without GMS, it's Google Managed Services. This will become an additional possibility to manage devices, Android devices on Intune, but at the moment it's a very limited thing. So basically you can only, where is it? Yes, you can only manage these RealWear devices. Some of you might remember the Google Glass augmented reality glasses. So these RealWear devices are very similar to that, and they run on Android, but Android without the Google managed services, meaning without Gmail, without Google Maps, without Google Play Store and such. So going back to corporate-owned dedicated devices, yes, we use a QR code for registration, or as I said, zero touch, use dynamic device groups and deploy apps and updates in the background. And yeah, and the most common manufacturers that I have seen throughout the last couple of years are Zebra, Honeywell, M3 Mobile, and Samsung devices. And earlier this morning, during the presentation of Alessio, somebody in the call mentioned Samsung Galaxy devices that they manage. And what I immediately thought, might this specific configuration be possible via an OEM config? So have you tried applying an OEM config to the device? Because there are, like, I don't know, 400 key value pairs that you can set in an OEM config. So this would be a possibility to try out maybe.
Yeah, I will share the time with you if we can go ahead with that, because for me will be very interesting. But not so far. We are blocked with this point.
Mhm. So this OEM config, it's basically an app that you push to the device, and you put config inside the app, and the app will then apply the config to the whole device. So Zebra, Honeywell, M3 Mobile, Samsung, they all have one of these apps, and the app has a configuration attached to it. And you can use this app configuration to configure the device itself. So this is a mechanism that was introduced by Google a couple of years back in order to give the manufacturers more control over their own devices. So you don't have to use the Android Enterprise API to control details of the device itself, but the device manufacturer can create a device-specific OEM config app and the accompanying configuration to configure the device. So yeah, that's another possibility that you should try out, maybe with somebody from Nomasis, if possible.
I noticed that. Thank you.
So back to my tangent on Android devices. So yeah, there are Android devices that you can use, and I just found out last week there is another possibility by Microsoft if you link the user to Azure AD. So there is an additional possibility to do multi-user Android devices when you have the Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator app, brokering the changing of the users on the devices. So this will be interesting too. But this talk is about iOS. And iOS, there are two main possibilities or three main possibilities to manage iOS devices for multiple people. So there is the shared iOS devices setup, and this also uses the Microsoft Authenticator as a identity management tool, basically. So you use the Microsoft Authenticator app to sign in and sign out your user. All of these setups on iOS require at least iOS 14. There are some features that could be done with iOS 13 and such, but yeah, I'd say iOS 14. And of course, the devices have to be fully managed, supervised. They have to be in the Apple Business Manager, or they have to be manually staged with the Apple Configurator, which I will not recommend. So have managed ADE devices. And yeah, how to set it up is a bit different, whether it's an iPad or a not iPad, I'd say. So this shared device mode, it supports also iPhones and iPods. And shared iPads is just iPads. So if you require a SIM card and the ability to call, to have like regular phone calls, you will need an iPhone. So this means you cannot do shared iPad. But if you want to do this shared device mode, that is also possible with iPhones, it has some upsides, but huge downsides. The main downside is only special apps are supported, as I have mentioned here. And Microsoft Teams is the only Microsoft app that supports this shared device mode, which means you have to use specially modified apps that support this shared device mode. So you have to build in the MSOL, this Microsoft Authentication library, into your custom app. So you've got to have your developer build this into the app for you. And you can also use Microsoft Teams. And as you know, Teams is kind of a platform app. You can also read your emails inside Teams, a little bit of it. You can view your calendar and your contacts and such. But I'd say it's not a nice solution, but it doesn't require federated Apple IDs, which is a huge plus because it's also a huge chunk of work to do first if you want to do shared iPads. So these shared device mode setup should only be considered if you only require Teams. And Microsoft recommends shared iPads, not shared device mode. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Yeah, to set it up, it's very simple. Yeah. Then there's also a possibility to use multi-user capability offered by Mobile Iron. So Mobile Iron has introduced this multi-user capability, I don't know, 7 years back or even longer. As long as I can remember. I mean, I started at Nomasis 6 years ago, and there already was a multi-user sign-in, sign-out capability built into Mobile Iron. And there you can have multiple labels, different kind of screens with different apps whitelisted or shown or hidden. And yeah, there are certain restrictions applied nonetheless on all these scenarios, but certain limitations are also in place. Like, for example, you can't have an auto logout, for example. You cannot say, yeah, this person logged in, and if the device is sitting idle for an hour, log the person out so that the next person that comes along has like a fresh start on the device already. And yeah, there's the huge downside that user data might still be inside of the app if the app is not properly uninstalled and reinstalled. But if you want to be able to switch quickly, yeah, you should not uninstall the app, but depending on the app, there might be some user data left if you don't uninstall it. So this is kind of the tricky part about sharing iOS devices with this Mobile Iron built-in mechanisms. There are apps where this works better and apps where it's a bit more complicated. So now let's get to the point. I'm already 10 minutes into my presentation and I start talking about shared iPads. So if you decided on using the shared iPad feature, you can also set up shared iPads, of course, with Mobile Iron or with Intune. And it starts in the enrollment profile of the Apple Business Manager. So you have to kind of tick the shared iPad box. Otherwise, it will not become a shared iPad. And from there, only iPads are supported and only these supervised DEP devices with shared iPad can be used. And the user that signs in needs a managed Apple ID, not a regular Apple ID that you use to set up your own iPhone that you bought at the store. So in order to use shared iPad, you need a managed Apple ID. And there are two main ways to get a managed Apple ID. Either you go to the Apple Business Manager and you manually create a managed Apple ID one by one. There's no API, there's no scripting, there's no importing CSV files. You have to do them manually, all of them, one at a time. That's the first possibility. And the second possibility is to federate your domain with Azure Active Directory. This means that, for example, nomasis.ch, the whole domain of nomasis.ch will become a federated domain, and all the Apple IDs with the domain at nomasis.ch will become managed Apple IDs. And yeah, there are also differences between Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager. There are additional possibilities for Apple School Manager, but I will not go into detail about these because I think none of you guys are from a school, and we only had one or two customers that are schools, and these special stuff only applies to schools. So yeah, when you make managed Apple IDs, there are three main use cases. One of them is shared iPad. The shared iPad use case where you have to log in with your managed Apple ID on a shared iPad. But there are also other managed Apple ID use cases, like user enrollment. This is an enrollment possibility that was introduced about 2.5 years ago by Apple, where you have like a very light touch device registering possibility. But this requires a managed Apple ID, and most of our customers did not opt for this registration possibility just because it would require them to get managed Apple IDs, which is a big hassle. So yeah, and of course, if you want to buy apps in the Apple Business Manager and assign devices, you also need a managed Apple ID to access the Apple Business Manager. So this is the third use case of the managed Apple IDs. And if you want to federate your domain properly, the UPNs have to manage the email addresses. I know this is also something that most organizations struggle with because they might have different user principal names than their email addresses. But best practice should have been for a long time to have these things the same. So yeah, the reality is a little bit different, unfortunately. First step, you have to federate your Apple IDs. Okay, so you go into the Apple Business Manager, you federate it with Azure AD, you click, it checks, and it says, yeah, 81 accounts will be notified because somebody of your domain, like in our example at nomasis.ch, has used their company email to register a private Apple ID. So you have to switch over to your personal email address or a newly created .icloud.com address in order to not lose your private Apple ID. If it's just 81, yeah, it depends on the size of your organization. Unfortunately, we have also seen notifications like this. Yeah, if it's a 4-digit number and all of these users have to do something, it's kind of yeah. Do we really want to go through with such a thing? Yeah. So the users that have created personal Apple IDs in the past, they will be reminded multiple times throughout 60 days that they should rename their Apple ID to another name, basically, another email address. If they fail to do that within 60 days, the Apple ID will be renamed on the 60th day to a temporary username, like a random generated something something. And from the 60th day, all the accounts ending in this domain will be managed Apple IDs. So if you want to be ready to deploy shared iPads in August, you have to start 2 months earlier to get these accounts properly set up. Just something to keep in mind. Then, yes, if you set up such a device, it goes through the automated device enrollment, picks up the registration profile, and you set the language, the country, and connect to Wi-Fi. It's 3 things, just language, country, Wi-Fi connection. Then you can put it there, wait half an hour, and the device should be ready. And that's how a device looks that's ready. So it's ready for sign in. There's a sign in window. Crap. Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's a sign in window where you can enter your managed Apple ID. So the first time somebody signs into the shared iPad, the person enters the federated Apple ID, so the personal email. The person also signs in with their Azure AD password and MFA prompt from Azure AD. And this is only the first time. The second step is in this first login on a shared iPad is to choose your shared iPad code. This shared iPad code will be linked to your managed Apple ID, and it's a 8-character alphanumeric upper and lower case password. You cannot change it. You cannot make it. The user can decide to make it 20 characters, but you as an admin, you cannot change this policy. It's 8 or more alphanumeric upper and lowercase. There's no possibility to change this. And this shared iPad code is then linked to the managed Apple ID of the person. And it can be reset, yes, by an admin in the Apple Business Manager. So if you reset it, you can give it back to your user, and the user has to change it the next after the next login. And this means every second and third time the user logs in on the same device, the user just selects the managed Apple ID and enters the shared iPad code. If the person picks up a different device the next day, the person has to enter, of course, the shared iPad, the managed Apple ID, and enter the shared iPad code. And that's it. But it kind of depends on where you're trying to. It depends on whether you already had signed in once on the device or not. So it will create a local user profile, so to say, and this profile will also be visible on the login screen. So when I log in with the AA user, in this case, I just entered the password, and the screen appears with the apps that I have deployed. And I have already signed into the Teams app and the SharePoint app in this example. So I already logged in once and signed into the Teams app, signed into the SharePoint app, and that's why I am still logged in when I go back to my user profile as user AA. Yes, there is AA signed into. You can see on the top left, the name is there. And now I'm signing out of the user profile of this person, and the apps also back up their temporary data. Now I selected the second user, entered the password, the shared iPad code, and now the user profile of the second BB user is signing in. You can always see which user is signed into the device on the top left, and in here the same apps are deployed. It doesn't have to be the same apps. You can, depending on the signed in user, you can make different apps available. And yeah, I haven't signed into the SharePoint app, but the Teams app already works. The settings app is very reduced, so you can only change little things about the device in the settings app. Like, for example, you can change the language, but the language will only be changed for your own app, for your own profile, basically. So yeah, basically the device will then consist of a system space, app space, and user spaces. And depending on the apps, this might be small or big. And yeah, the user can change things about the system, but only inside of his own profile. So this is kind of convenient, and the user can only break his own things. What I would recommend on a shared iPad is to set up lock screen messages, like on the login screen, like you can see over here, that it says, yes, this iPad belongs to Nomasis, and please give it back if you find it somewhere. Add a serial number, and yeah, background screens, and yes, use an SSO app extension. If we have a browser inside of the profile, use SSO, because the user is already signed in into his profile on the shared iPad. And yeah, block the stuff like Siri and FaceTime and such, because in theory it would work with a managed Apple ID, but it will generate prompts for the user, So you have to kind of block all these things that the user will not use anyway. And then you update, you deploy all the apps in the background to the device, and you show or hide the apps based on which user is signed in. So in this case, there would have been like 20 or 30 apps on the device, but I only showed the ones that I want the users to use, basically. It's just Teams and SharePoint in this example. Yeah, and because the user cannot update the OS itself, we also have to push an update policy so that the devices update iOS. Yeah, so that's what I would recommend to do on shared iPads. There are certain limitations also to shared iPads. You cannot use the company portal app for Intune. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter because it's not necessary for most use cases. You cannot install apps from the App Store. So the managed Apple ID cannot go to the App Store to install like private apps inside of the user profile. It's a corporate device. So all the apps have to be installed via VPP. And you cannot manage the passcode complexity. As I said, it's 8 characters for this shared iPad code. And email profiles, like native emails, is not supported, but you can deploy the Outlook app, for example. And yeah, you have to think about whether you deploy a setting to the device itself or to the user that is currently signed into the device. So it kind of depends how long it takes to sign in and to apply at some time. Yeah, if configs should be assigned to a user group, then you need federation. I have said there are 2 possibilities. Either you federate your whole domain, or you create the federated managed, you create the managed Apple IDs yourself, one by one. So if you want to have different apps for different people, you'll have to federate the managed Apple IDs. Otherwise, this is not possible. And there are lots of conditional access limitations, which are very unfortunate. But since they are company-only devices, it's not a big problem. Like I'll just leave it here. There are lots of conditional access limitations. Normally, we can mitigate them by excluding all the shared iPad from conditional access, because normally we want devices to be registered, but this is not possible for shared iPads and so on. So, yeah, as an admin, what do you do? If you don't have the Apple IDs federated, you create new managed Apple IDs one by one. You send this person the temporary password. This password has to be changed at the first login. And if you have manually created the managed Apple ID, the person also has to set an MFA mobile number, basically, inside the Apple Business Manager. So if you want to register a second or third or fourth shared iPad with a manually created managed Apple ID, the user has to kind of do MFA with his own device. What else can an admin do? Yeah, you can reset, of course, these shared iPad passcodes. This can be done from within the Apple Business Manager. And also how to access the Apple Business Manager, of course, with a managed Apple ID. So if you have a whole support organization, you'll have to create managed Apple IDs for them to access the Apple Business Manager to be able to reset other people's shared iPad passcodes. And if the devices are then registered, you can remove a user profile from a shared iPad, or you can also log out the current user on a shared iPad. So to sum up, shared iPads are a very special use case. There are different possibilities. If there's just one thing you can take with you from this presentation, it depends on the use case. It always depends on your use case. I think if you have the need to deploy shared devices, think about what apps you use, which EMM vendor you have in place, Mobile Iron, Intune, whatever. if it needs to be iOS or Android, how many devices there are. It's just 5 or 10 or 5 or 10 users, or is it 150? And think about your conditional access complexities and if it really fits into this whole situation. And yeah, I think that the most the best things about shared iPads is it's very fast switching back and forth, as you saw in the video, and the personal data is properly separated. So there's no possibility that user data is still available inside the app. And yeah, you can set up auto logout. Like if the device sits on the shelf for 30 minutes, it's signed out automatically. And you also have the possibility to allow guest sessions. So on the logon screen, there are the different people that have used it before, and there's a guest possibility to tap on the bottom right, which will set up a temporary guest session, which behaves a bit like a normal user session, but it will be not persisted. So everything you do inside of this guest session will be wiped from the device when you log out of the guest session. So this would be great if you want to, for example, hand out a device to a customer in the shop, like for example, I don't know, car shop, and the person has to fill out different stuff and configure some features of his car, or I don't know what, like half an hour, and then he gives it back, and you don't know what the user did in during these 30 minutes. If this person also signed into some websites or something, you have to get rid of it, and you can just log out of the guest session, and the next person can restart a new guest session. So this is it's also a really nice use case. And yeah, EMM vendors, especially Microsoft, is pushing these use cases for, I'd say, non-office people. So they really put this frontline worker use cases on their flags, so to say. So they really want to enable people that are not working at the desk to be more productive and use their services, basically, because they want to sell licenses. And yeah, therefore they try to push these use cases. And yeah, I'd say if you are interested in sharing devices among your users, yeah, schedule a workshop and tell us what you are interested in, and I'm sure we will find a solution within the realm of technical possibilities, because there are lots of technical limitations, and we have to kind of sail around these limitations to make your use case possible. And maybe we will have to say, no, it's not possible. But yeah, that's just yeah, that's how it is. So are there any questions from the audience? So let me look at the chat for a second. No questions in the chat. Yeah, maybe there are no general questions. If there are very specific questions regarding your own use cases, you can of course get back to me or to somebody else from Nomasis directly.
I would say thank you to Jonas for your presentation and your insights on this really interesting topic. And we would now hand over to Patrick Trevisan, who will take over the presentation from Pierre. Same topic, different language, I would say.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, je will switch to English because I didn't use my French very often in the past years. As soon as we opened an office in Fribourg, I didn't travel to your nice venues anymore, and I hope it's okay if I do this in English. Yeah, my name is Patrick. I work since almost 11 years for Nomasis, first as an engineer consultant. Last year I switched to the sales, just to have some more stimulus in my work life. And I'm very happy to present you our new managed home office Wi-Fi service today. So, especially during the pandemic, many customers of us came up with some challenges, which actually companies didn't have too much influence on, like stable networks at home, secure networks at home, but also maybe the whole family is working on the same Wi-Fi, the kids are gaming, the wife is in a Teams session already, and then you want to have one and you don't have bandwidth left and your Teams session is just struggling. That's why we came up with our new service. So imagine you are able to provide to your home office employee a secure business VLAN infrastructure without compromising their private one or their privacy. Imagine that the business VLAN infrastructure can just be set up by your employees by plug and play technology. And also imagine that you offer your home office employees reliable and flexible business Wi-Fi infrastructure with a guaranteed bandwidth. So what's the technology behind it in this service? AirZen. So AirZen, it's a router which you will place in your home network, which will generate a separate SSID to which you can connect with your business devices. And of course, such routers are not well seen if they're just placed somewhere on a shelf. They don't look very nice. So you can also do things like in the below right image that you can put it into a shelf or above behind the sofa so that it's not visible anymore. Who is AirSense? So it's a Swiss product with network technology from Europe. It can be used for the home office, but of course also for business use cases like guest Wi-Fi in venues in the company, or having better Wi-Fi signal throughout the company. It guarantees a permanently reliable Wi-Fi connection. It's a secure and separate network or networks, because of course you can also have guest network on the AirZen router. It certainly provides additional protection against attacks, because you never know how the user's Wi-Fi router, private Wi-Fi router is configured. Is it configured well or not? Is it open? Is it closed? Whatever. It's a simple plug and play solution, and it approximately covers about 300 square meters of living space. Especially also if you maybe have a big house, you can also do meshing. So that means that you can interconnect 2, 3 or more routers to have a better signal in all your home rooms. This managed service we provide it from one source. That means Nomasis will provide you with the hardware, with the configured security on the hardware, but also the staging and distribution to your home end users. We will operate and maintain it. We will offer help desk and support within our mobile operations center services. In order to get the service, it's as simple as the technology is. You just place an order, we deliver it, the user plugs it in, and he starts to work with it. The whole life cycle, so from the procurement and distribution to the equipment recycling or destruction, is taken care of by Nomasis within our mobile operations center services. What are the benefits of such of our managed home office Wi-Fi service? So we take care of the complete logistics. you don't have to think of distributing, configuring the routers. There will also not be any additional maintenance work for you. It can be, as we saw, simply and one-time set up by the employee in a plug-and-play with the plug-and-play technology. And we also continuously measure and verify the signal quality, not the signal itself, of course. We don't spy any. It's even not possible. It's not a spying technology, but we continuously measure and verify the signal quality and proactively approach the users. Say, listen, I think you need to place it somewhere else, or yeah, we saw that you have a low score, and we help him to improve the signal quality, especially in the beginning of the setup. And of course, if anything shouldn't work, we provide end user help desk and support for it. Let's maybe recap or have a look at the application examples. So maybe during the pandemic situation, you've heard like things that, oh, the laptop of the company is not working, but at the end it was not the laptop of the company, but maybe the signal quality at home. Or again, the kids are gaming, it consumes all the bandwidth, you are not able to do any Teams or other work on your business computer. But also it helps to improve the signal in every room. We had certain customers that maybe said, okay, I need to work at home. This room was not used before. Now I want to make my office in this room, but the signal didn't reach, the Wi-Fi signal didn't reach in that room. Then, of course, our home office Wi-Fi service can help you in improving the signal from the lower floors to the upper floors, but also from south to north or east to west in your house. And last but not least, today maybe with your partner both work at home and you face the same issues that maybe as soon as one has a team session the other struggles a bit, then you can separate first of all private from business connections, but also separate the signal and have a guaranteed bandwidth with priority that you are able to consume the bandwidth you need. And suddenly you can really work relaxed at home by using our managed home office Wi-Fi service. What does it include? We have 3 different offerings. We have a Home Basic, a Home Pro, and even a Home Independent solution. As you can see, the difference between Basic and Pro and Independent in the first place is with a Home Basic, you get a single Wi-Fi box. And with the Pro and Independent, you already have 3 boxes which can be set up in a mesh. Setup means that you can improve the signal. That's actually what's it thought for, that you can really improve the signal in all the directions in your home. Then every one of these offerings include the business, private, or even guest separation, the logistics to home, so that we will send, if you wish. Of course, this has to be seen how does it work. Some customers, they prefer to get it in the company and they will distribute it to the users, but we can also directly send it to the user's home. We also provide a direct end user help desk if needed, and proactive monitoring, the story I told you about the signal quality, and we also care about the maintenance, so the active platform management, the software updates of the routers to always be on top with security. Additionally, the Home Independent, that's why it's called Independent Solution, also offers or just SIM, or as I saw this morning at Philips, P-SIM support. That can also help. Maybe you have a house in the mountains where you don't have a subscription for Wi-Fi. Now with this solution, suddenly you have one. Or you travel a lot, you want to have a stable network connection, not relying just on your hotspot of your mobile, and you can have this with this E or SIM or the PSIM support. And VPN printing, this is actually currently under development. Soon you will also be able to have a router VPN and printing capability directly from the router at home. The service, approximately, depending on the flavor you take or how many routers you need, etc., costs about 40 Swiss francs per home and month. So actually very convenient price for a secure, simple, and reliable service. Yes, I'm already at the end of my short presentation of our new service. Are there any questions?